matches on clay. She has a 90% all-time match winning streak. She's obviously one of the great players of all time. She really helped make tennis what it is. Let's have a big round of applause for Chris Evert. So just super quick, couple quick questions, Chris. First of all, when you were 15, was it your first pro tournament when you beat Margaret Court? It was one of your first pro tournaments.
Yeah.
So at 15 years old, Chris played in a pro tennis tournament and beat not only the #1 player in the world, Margaret Court, but Margaret Court had won the Grand Slam that year. And then Chris Evert at 15 came across and came around and beat her. What's it like? And then you had unbelievable success. So what's it like being that age and having so much success, so much fame, all the stuff that comes with it?
Well, it was Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was 15, and nobody knew who I was. So, I mean, I just went out there. I remember in the semifinals, I beat Françoise Durr, like, I think 6-1, 6-love. And she was like 4 in the world. And she said afterwards in the press conference that her grandmother could have beaten her that day. And that made me feel really good. And then I beat Margaret Court. But in answer to your question, there's no pressure on a 15-year-old whatsoever. I mean, Margaret Court, in her defense, came off winning the Grand Slam. The tournament was in late September. She's probably like just wanting to go home to Australia, you know. But consequently, when I was ranked #1 in the world, Monica Seles beat me when she was 15, and Steffi Graf beat me when she was 15. So what goes around comes around.
And one of the things you hear a lot about tennis players is that actually counterintuitively that as you get a lot more nervous as you get older.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Well, you get more nervous when you're expected to win and you're established, especially when you play younger players. I mean, I remember playing Tracy when she first came on the scene in her little pinafore dresses and her braids. And I played her at Wimbledon, and I think she was 15. She beat me. But I remember I was just sweating bullets and just so nervous and uptight because these young kids, they go out, they're fearless and they don't feel any pressure, so the pressure's on us.
And one of the amazing things about your record was your consistency. Maybe probably the most consistent tennis player of all time. How do you account for the incredible consistency, the 125 straight matches on clay, 13 Grand Slam, 13 years with the Grand Slam title, all those great records?
Well, first of all, there wasn't the depth back then, so I think it was a little easier to do. 1, 2, 3. I think it was a little easier to achieve. It would be tougher to achieve that in this day and age because there's a lot more depth and players coming out of the woodwork. But I mean, my philosophy was I just didn't relax for a minute. I mean, if I won Wimbledon, it was like great, but the next week, if I had to go to Cincinnati and play, I got psyched up for that easily. And I think that's, maybe a lot of people can't do that, you know, but I think that the top players have to do that because that's part of being a champion is not only winning big titles, but it's being consistent also.
Well said. And team tennis, you played team tennis, and I've seen it on Tennis Channel, and you guys played in Madison Square Garden in these huge arenas. And in fact, one of the things in the 13 straight years you won a Grand Slam, you didn't play the French Open 3 years because you were playing team tennis. Jimmy Connors didn't win the Grand Slam because he played the French Open. So tell us about team tennis back then and sort of what it meant to you and how it fit into your career.
Wow, that's not a very good advertiser for team tennis. Jimmy Connors could have won the Grand Slam, but you're right. That year he won 3. He won the Australian, Wimbledon, and the U.S. Open. The wonderful thing about team tennis was, in my day, was the fact that it was every top player played, and it was 3 months, and we didn't have tournaments in the summer. Nowadays, you know, there are tournaments in the summer. The USTA really beefs up their tournaments. They're $1 million tournaments, and the players sort of tend to go towards the tournaments where they gain points and rankings. But in our day, that was the place to be. World Team Tennis was it. We had 12, 14,000 people every night when we played in stadiums because Bjorn Borg would come, or Billie Jean King, or Martina Navratilova. It was great, and it was such a reprieve from playing an individual sport. You know, being just so self-absorbed when you play in a team. That's why I think there are a lot of kids that are better suited to play team sports than individual sports because there's a lot more intensity in the individual sports, and also you have to be selfish. So it was great. You had your own coach. You get free coaching every day. You got to practice with the guys and the girls, and you got to travel together as a team. So it was a wonderful feeling.
And I think one of the things that we've experienced in Washington is not only is it great for the players, it's great to build the sport of tennis in an expanded fan base, because we obviously have so many people here who are in the tennis community, but then when you go in our stands, over half the people are people who either just are sports fans who like to root for a team with Washington on their jersey, or they're just people who want to go have a good night that may be a normal tennis match. And I think, you think about that Billie, when she started this, I think, as you said, it was the beginning of pro tennis, and I think her view, she says, is she was thinking about how to make tennis more popular. This was her view of what would make tennis as big. Do you think that if it had a bigger role, that tennis might be more popular?
I don't know. It's tough to answer that question, but I think that when you talk about these cities having a fan base, I think when you look at, there's only 52 weeks of the year, and we have a little bit of an off season, December, November, and not every city in the United States can hold a tournament. So this is a great idea for the cities that maybe don't have tournaments, professional tournaments, to just have World Team Tennis. And the beauty of it, I mean, I love watching it because you get to see 5 different showcases. You get to see the women's singles, the men's singles, women's doubles, men's doubles, and mixed. You get to see 5 different things in a 2.5-hour span, and you don't get that at all. So, and you get to see the personalities and the different players, and it's wonderful.